They don't really look for qualifications. They're looking for someone who's passionate, someone who seems quite driven and motivated to do what prep needs us to do.
Our trains are extremely fast and we travel up to 125 miles per hour in the UK. They also weigh up to 400 tonnes. It therefore takes over a mile for a train to stop once the emergency brake has been applied. That's the equivalent to 20 football pitches in length. Now, no train driver can see that far away, so if you're on the railway, you won't be able to stop in time.
Where you can really make that difference is the other things that you do. Work experience is something lots of people have. Things like Duke of Edinburgh, charity work in your own time, things that show that you've gone out of your way to develop your behavioural skills.
The main thing is willingness and just someone that really wants to throw themselves into the company.
The people that really stand out for me are those that are very well prepared. They present themselves and things like CVs and any experience they've had well, and just come across really positive and keen.
The Learn Live experience was really good for us, not only as a business to get Forbes out there and apprenticeships out there, but for our apprentices as well. They were really nervous coming over to the studio to record, but once we got here, Stuart was really lovely and friendly and made them feel really relaxed, so the broadcast went really well. So I think after being involved in something like this, the apprentices are really going to be able to feel the confidence to go out and promote apprenticeships locally to schools and younger people.
Hello, my name is Alex. I'm an apprentice for Nestle. I recently did a Learn Live video Q&A. It was a fantastic session and it was really great to be able to show some proper insight about the work that we get to do as an apprentice in Nestle. Afterwards, Nestle absolutely loved the post in Word. Everybody knew about it. Everybody was asking how it went, and everybody was so impressed with the amount of reach that we actually got, visibility about our talk. Also about Nestle went to over 3,000 people across the UK and even some people in Vienna, Austria.
Hi, my name is Max Trapani. I work for Pret a Manger. I'm a recruitment advisor for apprentices, recruiting apprentices into Pret. We were all quite nervous at the beginning. And once we did it, it was easy. It was a lot of fun. We reached a large number of students. Afterwards, when we found out how many we did reach, we reached over 3,000 in one broadcast. My company was very happy. My boss was extremely happy. We didn't expect to hit that many people. And it was phenomenal. It's been great for Pret to reach out to students, and we've had a lot of interest in our apprenticeships since then.
At Bentley Motors, we really enjoyed doing our activity with Learn Live, where we were able to reach thousands of students in different schools across the country. For me and my apprentices that came along to do the broadcast, it was a great experience. The team put us at real ease from the moment we got there, and we were really surprised at the amount of students we were able to interact with through the system. We normally do a lot of attraction activity locally, but this allowed us to reach a national audience and even an international audience, and reach out to lots of different students that we might not normally reach through our normal channels.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now this bit is for the parents, guardians and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.
So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this broadcast on Gatsby Benchmark 1, Module 3. Great that you can join us this afternoon. Now, this module will be based on presenting your program and developing an effective site on your website for careers. This broadcast is designed to take career leaders to reflect on the content of their careers program and how it can be presented effectively for different stakeholders. The broadcast also supports career leaders to reflect on the presence of careers on the school website and how this can be enhanced as a showcase for the careers programme. Now, delighted to be joined again by Marie Jobson, the area education manager at the Careers Enterprise Company. Hi, Marie.
Hi, everyone.
And Marie will be going through the presentation, which we did yesterday as a first chance at going through Module 3. This is a repeat of that. And also be answering any of your questions that come through on the live chat. But I'm just going to ask Marie to reflect on what we've done so far in this series, and also a little bit about logistics as well. Thanks, Marie.
Thank you, Stuart. Lovely to see everyone this afternoon. It's great to see names and things coming through the chat, just to see where everyone's joining us from. Just a note about this session. I was just looking at a comment from Jason. These modules are rather chronological, and this broadcast does really depend on having seen Module 2. So I think you'll still get value from it if you haven't accessed Module 2 yet, but it might be worth revisiting Module 2 and revisiting this one after, because Module 2 really focused on the nuts and bolts of how to build a stable and progressive programme, and this is about how do you then cherry pick which elements and how do you present it, particularly for a website. And as always, as I've said in each of these, thank you so much for bearing with us. We're very much learning how to manage online broadcasts and webinars like this. So thank you so much for your patience. I know there has been some confusion and inconvenience around registrations. So it's lovely to see you all today.
Thanks, Marie. And just on that point, if you do want to catch up, either Rachel or Kelly, your colleagues who are on the chat today, will post up the links to where you can find those broadcasts as well if you missed them, and if you're just catching up, it is probably worth going back and revisiting them fairly quickly after this, just to make things seem more sensible in the way that Marie has structured these modules. Also, as well as the live chat is starting to fill up, it's great to see people logging in. If you could tell us which school you're from and whereabouts in the country. Adele's just done that. Thank you, Adele. Good to see someone from Huddersfield, and we've also got people from Rugby as well, and East Grinstead. So coming in from all over. If you could let us know where you're from, and you see there Rachel has just posted as well the link to where you can find all the resources you've missed so far. So yeah, please feel free to use the live chat to ask any questions as Marie goes through the presentation. And then what Marie will do, we'll have a gap. We'll do it in 3 segments today. We'll have a gap, and at each gap there'll be a chance to reflect on the questions that's come in. So keep them coming in, and Marie will tackle them in the breaks as we go through this broadcast. Thanks very much, Marie. If you're ready, we'll now ask you to do the first part of the broadcast for the career leaders who've joined us today. Thank you.
By the end of today's webinar, what you will be able to do is present a careers programme informed by key strategic objectives and progressive learning outcomes that we've covered in previous sessions, but also start to understand effective presentation of your provision on your school or college website. I think it's important at this point to review previous modules under the processes that we've considered. So we started out considering setting a vision and strategic objectives to drive your planned impact and the purpose of your stable and progressive careers programme. In the last module, what we started thinking about was setting learning outcomes for each key stage as progressive steps towards students developing that personal effectiveness, career readiness, and the employability skills to support positive outcomes in education and employment. We then started to think about covering the process of auditing and mapping where learning outcomes were being covered in order to track, celebrate and record progress towards those positive outcomes, while also thinking about a gap analysis and plans to ensure full coverage for each and every student. So this session will really focus on how to present each key elements and information for multiple stakeholders. So it's worth kind of thinking about, first of all, who are the stakeholders? They are multiple, but what do they need to know about your strategic careers plan and careers programme? And that's what will shape this session. What I've got here is just a worked up example of something that we looked at last session. So we considered an audit document last week. And where we got to was we thought once you've identified your learning outcomes and you've audited these to see where and how they were being covered, that is essentially your careers programme. So you can see in that example, this is actually taken pretty much from my time as a careers leader in a school in the Northeast. You can see that the activities and what's populating this audit is from discrete career sessions. It kind of links to assemblies, tutorial times, but it also kind of is around being embedded in the curriculum as well. So you can see from this example, combined with notes that you may have included in the guidance to creating an effective strategy and building a progressive programme, that there's a lot of information here. All of it's essential for you to know as a careers leader about how you're populating your learning, how your learning outcomes are being covered, and then working towards those strategic objectives and vision. But not everybody needs that level of detail. So we need to think about how do we kind of tease out from all of that information what multiple stakeholders, different stakeholders need to know. So key stakeholders to consider really are your primary stakeholder, obviously, are students, parents, carers, staff, SLT, governors, employers, and partner organisations as well from the community. And also, it was referenced last time that Ofsted obviously kind of looms large as well. And it's important that we make our information really clearly accessible for Ofsted, but really our primary stakeholders obviously are students. So all stakeholders want and need different information and insight into your strategic careers plan and your programme. So for today, I thought let's think about this question about what information stakeholders might need in terms of 3 prompts. What might they need to know about your intent? What might they need to know about your delivery and your activity? And what might they need to know about impact? If you've got ideas or you want to share practice that you kind of currently have, please do add that into the chat about kind of what you share with those individual stakeholder groups as we go through. So before we get specific about individual groups of stakeholders, let's think about what people might need to know and be able to do about your careers programme and your strategic careers plan in terms of intent. Obviously, it's important that people understand your vision, strategic objectives, learning outcomes, which show that planned impact. Might people need to know about statutory expectations, about career strategy guidance? That shows the context and expectations from government guidance. This is just thinking in general, this is the range of information that any one group might need to know about your intent. And as always, I'm keen to know in the chat if you think I've missed anything. This isn't for one particular group, this is potentially what any group might need. And we'll start thinking about finessing that a little bit in the next section. So I'm keen to know if you think there's anything else that anybody might need to know about the intent of your careers programme. Then we can kind of think about the delivery and activity. What information might stakeholders need to know in terms of that delivery or that activity? Some people might need to know benchmark progress. Depending on the stakeholder, it will look different in terms of what is presented, how and when. For example, current Compass scores versus your last submission might be relevant. Planned activity compared to actual activity might be relevant. Or your benchmark progress compared to national average or local average within your LEP or hub area, for example, might be important. It's also worth considering how to highlight specific benchmark progress so that stakeholders can understand your approach and delivery around benchmark 8, benchmark 7, with real attention to that statutory guidance around personal careers guidance, provider access, the Baker Clause, as well as highlighting possibly how benchmark 5 and 6 are met as key benchmarks that are highlighted in the career strategy and in the education inspection framework. It could also be that stakeholders might need to know how careers is embedded within the curriculum as well. And obviously, kind of key events, activities, it may be of value to share a progressive overview of your programme to show how each element builds on what has gone before and prepares for the next stage. It could be that some stakeholders might need cohort level data. It might be by key stage, might be by year group, or it might be like a specifically identified cohort, as you can do in Compass Plus. You can create a specific cohort that may be informed by the school development plan or college development plan and your strategic objectives. It might be that some stakeholders might need student level data. And again, this is something that Compass Plus can help with, and is absolutely can be really valuable to track and present your programme to evidence and to know that your programme supports each and every student. Other stakeholders might really need to know or want to know about key partnership links, which may cover providers which add capacity, particularly potentially around benchmark 8 or benchmark 5 and 6, but also key employer links as well. So this is kind of what stakeholders might need to know about your delivery activity. Again, if there's anything else that you think that stakeholders may need to know about your programme and the delivery and activity within it, please do add some suggestions in the chat about what you convey already or any ideas that you have. Finally, let's have a think about what stakeholders might need to know about the impact of your careers programme. So we really need to focus on, obviously, destination data. It could be that some stakeholder groups would benefit from knowing about your evaluation process and the findings of your evaluation. Don't forget, in Module 4, we're going to come back to evaluation of your programme in more detail in the next and final session. Stakeholders might be interested stakeholder voice and really kind of understanding and knowing not just what the process of that is, but also what came back from stakeholder voice and how that's been used to inform your programme. It might be in the interest of some stakeholders to think about the progress that students make around personal attributes, career readiness and employability skills. So the progress around those outputs that support the outcomes, like destination data, etc. Other bits that might be of interest or might be necessary for stakeholder knowledge could be key narratives, key threads that you might pick out from your careers programme, but also success stories as well, particularly about alumni as a way to really motivate, but also celebrate the success of your careers programme as well. So that's kind of the whole range, potentially, and I hope you've been adding more into the chat as I've been going through those potentially bits that I've missed. But before we start thinking about how we might package all this up and select elements from what stakeholders might need to know about intent, about delivery and activity, and about impact, let's stop for a minute for any questions, comments or reflections on the range of potential information that stakeholders might benefit from.
So thank you for that recap of past modules, Marie. And it's great to see those examples and go into what information stakeholders will need to see. I'm looking forward to hearing some of the thoughts we've had on the chat. I think you've picked on a few things as well that you clocked there as you were doing the presentation. So I'll let you just reflect on what's come in so far. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'm just having a quick look as we go with the chat. I think what's really key at this point, thank you for your comment, Adrian, about kind of values and priorities. I think it is really key in terms of that intent, but also the impact, how far you get through your programme, meeting those vision and priorities is really important. There's probably a question at this point. What we're going to move on to, obviously, is the website. But there are lots of different ways that you can really kind of present your programme to key stakeholders. So what was really lovely yesterday is we had some colleagues sharing their ideas about how they presented their programme at different points. I think this presentation could have kind of gone on and on with extra slides, and we could have spent a bit of time thinking about that. But really interested to hear your ideas about how and when you can present to stakeholders apart from the website, which obviously is the main one. So we got a lot of really good resources, and people followed up by sending them to the inbox as well, which was really good yesterday. So we had newsletter suggestions. A really good example came through that we're hoping to get on to the resource directory. But also I think it links to previous questions that we've had around SLT engagement and governor engagement, and how you can be really strategic about what and when you present, either in a briefing paper or in a PowerPoint presentation to SLT and governors, to really ensure that buy-in and to make sure that people are really clear. So obviously today we're just focusing on website, but any other ideas that you have, please do share them about how you present your programme to key stakeholders.
Thanks, Marie. I'll ask Rachel or Kelly if they could put the email address as well on the live chat, because I think that was worth sharing, where they can send their ideas that they've implemented in their school or colleges. That'll be good to do. And yeah, Kelly's also mentioned there where the resources will be shared soon on the BM1 page at the Careers Enterprise Company website. So that'll be going up over the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for those as well. Don't forget, keep using the live chat over the course of this broadcast to get your questions to Marie. As you just seen there, she will pick them up in the break. And thanks for those who have done so far. And thank you as well for telling us where you are in the country. I think Marie was saying she recognises a couple of familiar people who've been back for more, which is great to see. So thanks for sticking with us. Just one more module after this, which is next week. And it's just worth mentioning as well, all the modules are at the same time. So next week, Tuesday at 11, we'll be doing module 4, which is the last of the series, and then repeating that again at 4:30 on the Wednesday. And of course, you can catch up on all of them on the Careers Enterprise Company website, where they'll all be available to watch back. If you're one of those people who like to watch it in a binge and watch it all together in one, like a Netflix experience, you could do that as well. Okay, I'm going to ask Marie to go over to the next section, which is going to cover the website. So if you're set, Marie, we'll do that now. Thank you.
We're going to start today thinking about your website as a way of supporting stakeholders and different groups to effectively access and understand your careers programme. As we go through this section, this process can equally be applied to SLT engagement and governor engagement. There's been some brilliant dialogue and interaction in the chat from colleagues, from participants, about how do we really ensure SLT buy-in, governor buy-in, but also bringing staff along and colleagues. So the processes that we talk through about selecting the information for the website, we can kind of do the same things, the same process when you're considering that selection of information and the regularity of presenting that information when thinking about SLT engagement, staff CPD or engagement, and governor as well. But for today, I focused on the website, which kind of a colleague the other day described as your shop window, if you like, for your careers programme. So multiple stakeholders will be accessing your website, and they'll all have slightly different needs. For every stakeholder, you've got to almost repeat the process that we considered when we thought about setting learning outcomes for your careers programme. And that really is about what information should be included on your website, and really putting it through that funnel of what do people need to know, understand, and potentially be able to do when we're kind of going into the realms of CPD for parents, carers or staff. So it is really, really similar to that thought process. What do students, teachers, employers, parents, carers need to know, understand, and be able to do? And I'd be really interested in if you've got comments as we go through about particular things that get a lot of traffic or get really good feedback that you put on your website. What gets that kind of really good click through, what's well received on there. So this is kind of a bit of an example, that thought process. So what I've done here is pretty much just gone through all the ideas about what people might need to know about the vision, about delivery activity, about the impact, and almost going through, you know, kind of what on a website, go through this as a process. Is that relevant? Looking at that first column around vision, there's an argument that all stakeholders need to understand your vision, and that needs to be shared with them. And a really good comment that came up in the last module was that absolutely those key stakeholders should be involved in setting that vision, as well as being reminded and being you know, aware of it and understanding it. But there's other bits there that you would put across for some stakeholders and leave a blank for others. So it's worth kind of just going through that filtering. So once you've gone through that thought process of what information each stakeholder group might need in order to be able to know and understand the things that you want them to, then we can start to think about how to present it. And for today's session, obviously we're thinking about website, but obviously there are other ways to present your programme and present this information, whether it's through briefing reports, newsletters, PowerPoint presentations, CPD sessions, etc. But for today, we're going to really think about the website. So it's really important, first of all, that your career section is easy to find. In researching for this presentation, this is something that isn't always the case for schools and colleges. So it's not always easy to locate where career sits, and I find that really, really interesting. We'll think in a minute about statutory guidance and how it's really important that key information is prominent. In terms of a shop window, we have got to be mindful of Ofsted, and it is one of the places that Ofsted will go, obviously before a visit. So it's really important that key information is really visible and apparent, you know, to prevent a potential trail. But wherever careers sits for you within your website, and it can be in many different places, from, as I say, from kind of clicking through lots of different school and college websites. Sometimes it's in student section, sometimes it sits within parent carers, sometimes it sits within a general information tab, or even in curriculum, which is great to see. And one thing that I would just kind of really be mindful of is instinctively it might be different across different schools or colleges, but that instinct might not be shared by the stakeholders who need to find that information. So whichever tab you put it in, I would almost kind of, obviously you've got your one content page or site or part of your website, but I would put links to your careers page in all of those tabs, all leading to that same place, because different stakeholders will visit different areas of your website expecting to find careers, and if it's not there, obviously that is a barrier. So try and feature careers on all likely tabs, taking them to the same content in your section of the website. We talked about thinking about spending time really thinking about what people need to know about careers, and this really will help streamline information to ensure that the most important elements of what you need people to know and understand aren't lost. We'll come on to statutory guidance, as I've said, in a minute, as there are really clear expectations about what must be on your website. This does include your programme. And we spent some time in the last module thinking about building your programme, and as we showed in the example in that first slide today, that can end up with being a lot of detail. So, you know, we want people to understand the vision, the objectives, the learning outcomes that will fulfil that vision, but not all stakeholders will need to see that amount, that volume of information. So we'll kind of think about how can that best be presented for stakeholders. So I do want to spend a little bit of time on statutory guidance, and really it is a question for you. Is it clear that you are meeting statutory guidance from your website? Is that information upfront, clear, really accessible? Because, you know, what we don't want is that people are having to click a lot to try and find this really key information. So in terms of provider access policy, there is an example provided in Annex A of the guidance, the government guidance for that you can replicate. Obviously the link will be shared in the resource tab, so you can access that. On the Careers and Enterprise Resource Directory, there's also a website guidance document with suggested wording and useful tips from colleagues in Greater Manchester and Cornwall, and a useful website audit tool from colleagues in Liverpool as well. So it is just worth being cognizant of what the statutory guidance says that must be on the website, and then really giving thought to making sure that it's really easily accessible and really easily kind of understood as well, that you're meeting that statutory guidance. The other bit around the statutory guidance is really thinking about the impact as well. It is really crucial to think, is the impact of your programme apparent? Not just thinking about your planned impact, but really showcasing data outcomes, those narratives and those success stories as well.
Thank you, Marie, for going into the website and showing us how to support stakeholders in different groups, while showing how they can easily access and understand a college or school's careers programme. And I'm sure a lot of people have taken on board what you've said there. So let's have a look at some of the questions. I think you picked up some from Adrian, didn't you, Adrian, who's left a comment?
Yeah, what's really interesting about kind of what different stakeholders might want to know, and Adrian's commented about destinations, so where parents might want to know, where might my child go next. Just reflecting on resources, as I say, that were shared after delivering this yesterday. There was, and I referenced that newsletter, there was a really good pictorial kind of journey, if you like, about all the different post-16 options, all the different post-18 options, to make it really visual for parents. And something that probably didn't come through very clearly in my slides, it came up as a question yesterday, was about what about links? And often, I do advise caution with this, because often if you visit a lot of career sites, sometimes all you get is that IAG bit, the links, and it can be quite overwhelming. But I think, again, we've used the word streamline. As long as things are streamlined, I think it is really good to be able to point parents particularly in the direction of really good links and support. But that pictorial overview was really useful, I think.
Thank you. There was also, Wendy had started a conversation about governors and how important they are. I know Rachel and Kelly have shared some resources that you have on your website for governor guidance. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, how important they are in this programme?
I love the feedback from Wendy. I think it's interesting, having been a careers leader for a long time, I'm now on the other side of the fence as a governor for careers. So it's lovely to see that is really valued by Wendy, that person's really supportive. But it is a really good mechanism to think about, not just the website, because as I said before, although we're concentrating on the website today, it is really crucial to keep stakeholders, particularly like governors, absolutely up to date and putting that key information. This is the reason people become governors, isn't it? This is why they give up their time, is to invest in young people and their outcomes. So it's really important to put those success stories, the key narratives, key data in front of governors in whatever shape or form. Maybe it is through a link on the website, maybe it is through a briefing, maybe it is through an update in person. So I think it's really good to always be mindful, what do I want my governors to know, understand, etc.
Great.
We will be sharing that. I've just seen the comment come up. We will be sharing that came through, that overview of options.
Yeah, and just to remind people who are watching this, to send your ideas and best practice through to, and any resources, is education@careersandenterprise.co.uk. Maybe Kelly or Rachel will just repost that again, but it's education@careersandenterprise.co.uk, where we'd love to have your ideas and thoughts on how you can help others in other schools. Thank you. I think we are okay for now on that section. Marie, are you okay to take us on to the next section, the final section of this presentation, which is the presentation of programme? So if you're set, Marie, we'll go for that now. Thank you.
Okay.
There is expectation in government guidelines and statutory guidance that you will present a summary of your programme, and I'm really interested to hear from you all how you currently do this. I've seen lots of different examples of descriptive paragraphs per key stages, some bullet points. We've also seen in previous chats on different modules that some careers leaders have developed learner journey. And it's really important that what is shared is a summary showing that progressive nature of the programme rather than a calendar of events that people might struggle to understand the rationale or struggle to understand how what's there builds on what's gone before and prepares for what's next, particularly in terms of strategic objectives and vision. There is a tool that we've developed. It's not a tool really, it's a template that you can edit. It's featured on the screen here. It's available in the resource tab and on the resource directory as well. Again, around that kind of statutory guidance, there's space there to add your contact details so that that's really visible, but also to capture your vision statement at the top of this journey. And then really deliberately, we've kind of split the sheet in two. It is really important that people get a flavour of your key events and experiences, and they're on the right hand side per year group, but you can do this via key stage. So what are the key events that you might expect to see? And that might be useful for employers, for parents, carers, but particularly for students. But then on the left hand side is what kind of relates to really showing that it is a progressive programme, and this is where you can cherry pick out of that volume of information. So where you've really spent that time covering and identifying those learning outcomes, that's where you can showcase to people, this is what we're working towards at this school. So, you know, by the age of year 7, you know, these are the learning outcomes. I've called them milestones and learning outcomes because you may want to phrase it as by the age of year 7, our students will be able to. And it really depends how you want to capture that. But I think it is really useful to have something, however you develop it in your own house style, that shows not only some key activities and events, but absolutely where they fit with learning outcomes that you have and where they fit as a ladder towards that vision for your programme according to your strategic plan. So that template is available for you to edit and use as you will, but I am really keen to see examples and share examples from colleagues who have referenced that they do have their own learner journeys, because you've got to find the right one that works for your school or college. And it may not be that a learner journey is effective in your setting. So again, please do contribute to the chat. How do you convey to your stakeholders that you've got a progressive careers programme, and what do you include in that? So when somebody asks for your careers programme, what do you give them that really tells them, this is what I'm working towards, and this is how I build towards that. There are some interesting examples for you to consider. These slides will be available through the resource directory and then the resource tab on the on demand for these modules. So these links are hyperlinked, but we'll put the links in the chat as well. So Walker Riverside Academy in the Northeast, English Martyrs School and College in Teesside, and the Key School in the west of England, which is an SEND school. So please do kind of have a look. But you know, if you really feel, please be brave today as well. If you really feel actually our shop window, if you like, for careers is really strong, please pop the link in. We'd love to see it. Or if you know of any really good examples, please do share them, because this is something that's often a challenge for careers leaders, to know what exactly to put in that shop window. Just want to spend a little bit of time thinking about Compass Plus. There has been quite a lot of discussion around Compass Plus in the chat. in previous modules, please do get in touch with us if you need support in working with data teams, SLT, around embracing Compass Plus and understanding particularly how the data works around speaking to your MIS systems, because we can really support with that. We've got teams who can support and put colleagues' minds at rest about that. I just want to focus really around the digital tool and the added functionality that it gives. So Compass Plus is another free tool. It is an extension of Compass, so it does everything that Compass does already. So you can obviously kind of measure your benchmark progress, but it does have added functionality for you, for careers and for school leaders as well. It's particularly useful when you want to present benchmark progress with comparisons against previous Compass submissions, but also against national local averages and projected impact of planned activity. So it's really a useful tool to think of when you're thinking about engaging with SLT, Ofsted and governors. Crucially, Compass Plus also allows you to track at student level. Obviously, we really recommend that you have a tracking system at student level, whether that be in Excel, but Compass Plus allows you to do that at student level. And as I referenced before, you can create specific cohorts which can be created in line with your priorities as a careers leader, or potentially around school or college priorities and strategic objectives. Careers leaders can also input intended and actual destinations in here, which really facilitates the effective tracking of destination data. And you can put in data sharing agreements. You can record in terms of tracking your alumni and things, so it can be really useful around that benchmark 3 around tracking destination data, and that functionality is developing all the time. So please do, if you haven't considered onboarding on the Compass Plus as yet, it is a free tool, so I'm not on commission, but please do consider it. As a previous careers leader, it's a really strong tool that would have really supported particularly how I track and monitored, but also how I then presented my progress and progress towards outcomes of students. Just an example of kind of, some of the reporting that you can extract. This is something potentially that you might want to put in your website. Think very carefully about who might kind of want the information about your benchmarks, who might understand that language and kind of really be interested. Particularly Ofsted might want to see that up front. It may need some context and explaining for parents, carers and students, but there is some reporting about what that you can feature on your website. But as I said, particularly some of the reporting and the infographics that you can, the graphics that you can download, and the ways that the reporting can be presented from Compass Plus can really strengthen and support reports for SLT and governance as well.
Oh, thank you for that, Marie. Please don't forget to use that template that Marie discussed, which is available in the resource tab below this video and also on the Careers Enterprise Company website. This will help provide you with how to present your progressive program overview for your website as well. So Marie, quite a bit of questioning coming in. Fiona's picked up on something you're going to pick up on, and Rachel and Kelly have been sending out links as well. But I think there's a couple of things you want to pick up on.
Yeah, thank you for your questions on the statutory guidance. I think the link, we'll try and add the link into the chat so that it can go right to the statutory guidance. Just to be clear, the policy bit is the access policy that you're required to put in. The other bit that is statutory is that overview of your programme. So it isn't statutory that you put on your policy. It's very good practice. And it is, as Rachel's saying, it's really well worth having a look at the update as well that we referenced in the presentation. So the policy that is referred to is the access policy, and in an annex of the statutory guidance there is a template for it. But the audit documents that Kelly's put the link to that I referred to from Manchester and Cornwall are really good at just making sure you've got that compliance on your website with statutory. And obviously that's something that stakeholders need to know, that you're working to statutory guidance and that you are compliant as well.
Thanks, Marie. Yeah, Fiona's acknowledged that.
Yeah.
We'll do. And I know we've been let off the hook a little bit about Compass Plus today. There's quite a lot about Compass Plus yesterday. Is it just reflecting on what we said about Compass Plus and the learnings from yesterday? Is it worth just mentioning that?
Yeah, I think if anyone is that we have moved on an awful lot around Compass Plus. It is a programme that a tool that continues to develop and continues to improve in terms of functionality. But if anybody is wanting or needing help around that data concern, we are overcoming that hurdle. Obviously, we've had concerns raised at school level and local authority level, and we've been able to support schools past that and reassure IT managers, data protection officers. So please do reach out to us at the education inbox if you're still having concerns, because that should have been alleviated, and we can offer that support with onboarding. But regrettably, Mandy, that there isn't a current date around rolling Compass Plus out to colleges. It obviously is in the plan, but it won't be this academic year, I don't anticipate.
Thank you, Marie. Just as this is a final call for any last minute questions that you may have for Marie, to go over the last few slides that we've done. And while they're thinking about that, just a reminder that Module 4 is next week. That's the last in this series of Gatsby Benchmark 1 modules that Marie's going to be covering. It's also worth mentioning as well those dates. That's next Tuesday at 11 and Wednesday at 4:30. And I'm sure Kelly and Marie will put up where you can register for that particular module. So thank you for that. And all of them will be available to watch back on our site and obviously on Careers Enterprise Company website as well. If you missed any of the modules, it's worth checking those out. It'll all make sense, won't it, if you watch them all, Marie, as a series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked your analogy of Netflix binging on module workshops. That's
yeah,
an interesting concept.
Yeah. I don't know many who will do that. I think it's quite a long, each one's about an hour, so I don't know if there's the appetite to watch all of them, but you never know.
There is one thing just before we go on to the resources, the template is coming. So he's left a comment. The digital team are working on it. If you email education@Careers and Enterprise, we'll be able to send it to you, but it isn't quite on the website yet. So please do drop us a line if you need it before next week.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned their resources. There is a resource video for this broadcast which is provided within the tab below. Yeah. But again, it's all available with all the templates on the CEC website, and it certainly will be over the next couple of days. So keep an eye on that. And like Marie said there, if you've got any further questions you want to aim directly, it's a good place to start, is that education@ email address that's been up on the chat a few times now, so scroll back through if you missed it. Just hanging.
I'm not the Marie that is in the chat. I think it's a colleague called Marie, but she does ask a good question around the Compass Plus user group. So I would absolutely echo what Rachel suggested and speak to your EC. I know Rachel was answering another query, but it would almost be the same. If you have got an enterprise coordinator, speak to them about kind of schools who can speak to you from that school perspective about what their experience has been. If you don't have an enterprise advisor, Marie, again, please do drop us a line and we'll try and connect you with a school who might be able to support you.
Great. Okay.
I've just seen Adrian's comment.
Yeah.
I like that show.
Yeah, this could be quite a long evening if we get into that conversation, but no, it's but Fiona's happy. Yeah, thank you, Fiona, for your feedback. Hopefully they are useful to those people who followed this series so far. As I said, the last one is next week, Tuesday at 11, Wednesday at 4:30, same time each week. And there's potentially as well a clinic coming up as well, which we're going to share with you the following week, which I'm sure you'll find interesting and helpful as well. I think we're good. I think most of the questions have been answered, and again, just thank you to your colleagues Rachel and Kelly for keeping everybody in the loop with links and various information that they need. And yourself, Marie, thank you for sharing Module 3 with us and going through those slides, really helpful. And thanks for your answering some of the questions that came in as well.
You're welcome.
So, as I say, Module 4 is the last in the series. About the same time. They're all about an hour, so we'll block off about an hour of your time to watch that in full. We'll keep the live chat on, so you can continue to ask any questions you may. The live chat will stay on the page, even after Marie's gone to get her tea or whatever you're doing next. And thanks again, Marie, for joining us for this broadcast on the Learn Live channel. Have a great evening and stay safe, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Welcome to this live chat facility tutorial. We have had a lot of questions recently about the chat facility and how to use it, so let's get into the video. The chat facility is built with students in mind, with a tool that doesn't need to be parent or teacher led. Each of our pages are linked to the person behind the broadcast, even after it's finished, so you can always ask your questions and get a response about the broadcast. So, let's have a look at how to use the chat facility. To use the chat facility, the first thing to do is to type your comment or question into the chat box. You can now enter your screen name. Your screen name will show when you type your question or comment. Now you will see the chat facility ask for your email address. As I mentioned before, each of our pages are linked to people from the organisation who can reply to your questions. You can enter your email address, which will not be shared with anyone, to get a direct response from the people behind the broadcast. If you do not want a direct response, then click the button at the bottom. People behind the broadcast can still respond to you if you don't provide your email address. This just means you may have to come back to the page to check the response. You can now speak to the people behind the broadcast and ask any questions you may have, or check out our partner pages to see the companies we work with who you can speak to right now about their current vacancies. You can also check out our careers page, which connects you to employers. Our live chat service is linked 24/7 to employers from a wide range of sectors, all waiting to hear from you. You can leave a question about how to produce a professional CV or how to prepare for interviews, anything work related, and one of our businesses will respond to you directly. You can also access a wide variety of live interactive broadcasts and video on demand with the live chat support on all pages. Now, this bit is for the parents, guardians, and teachers. The best bit about the live chat facility is that it is completely moderated, so you don't need to worry if your young person leaves a silly comment, as it will only show on their screen and no one else's. Another great thing about the chat facility is that it is GDPR protected, so no information is shared with anyone else. We will protect all email addresses and will never share personal information of the young people. If you have any questions about the chat facility or the Learn Live channel, please use the email us icon at the top of the page. Thank you, stay safe and stay tuned.